path to be well. To all our listeners, we're so happy that you have joined us, especially in this festive time, December 27th. My name is Mark Trombley, a founding member of Simcoe Holistic Health and Weedwell. I want to share with you how I became involved with cannabis as a medicine. As a teenager, I did judging those who did consume marijuana, thinking that their sole motive was to get high. It wasn't until many years later that I discovered the true medical benefits of marijuana. A loved one was diagnosed with MS, and after many months of symptom manifestation resulting in sleepless nights, I witnessed firsthand how cannabis can help alleviate symptoms and improve sleep. My eyes were open, and my interest further increased. As a result, Simcoe Holistic Health opened its doors in 2013. Since then, we have served nearly 6,000 patients ranging from ages 3 to 93. I have personally witnessed countless individuals and families experience improved quality of life. Having said that, I've also observed that cannabis treatment is simply not for everyone. And for that reason, I want to caution our listeners that cannabis treatment is not a one-size-fits-all. Determining if cannabis is an appropriate treatment requires the attention, care, and focus of your healthcare team. At Weedwell, we are committed to helping people improve their quality of life, and utilizing cannabis as a treatment option is one way to accomplish that. So joining me for this session are my colleagues, Paul Calori and Doug Rawson. So welcome, Paul, and welcome, Doug.
Hi, Mark.
So, guys,
happy holidays.
Same to you guys. Absolutely. And I can't get over how quickly 12 months or a full year goes by. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, this being end of year, the last session for 2020, what do you guys think we should be talking about tonight?
Well, I'll jump forward, if you will. I brought something up last time, and we touched on it a little bit. Maybe we'll carry forward a little to further explain. And that's some of the resources available at weedwell.tips. What we've talked about week over week is cannabis as a tool in the toolbox. And we've identified some patients, some consumers, where cannabis just isn't going to fit in your treatment plan. But that weedwell.tips has loads of information, tools, and resources that can be beneficial to you. It's not just cannabis focused. For an example, we have a sleep diary there and some tips for good sleep. Many people suffer from poor sleep, broken sleep, can't fall asleep, and there's lots of tools there that have nothing to do with cannabis, but tips and things to help you out and hopefully have a more restful sleep. Because we all know, we've talked with many patients here, sleep is such an important part in your wake up and your next day. And if you don't wake up refreshed, the entire day kind of starts under, and you just find yourself working to try to get back to even. And it just doesn't happen because you're tired. The kids are still doing what the kids do, or work is still doing what work's doing, and you never actually catch up. And that's an example of something at weedwell.tips.
Paul, great job summarizing some of the resources available. And you're right. A lot of the resources and a lot of the tools that we have are not cannabis specific. They're more about healthcare and those that are suffering from chronic conditions. And these tools, we want people to use those tools. You know, those tools are to help people move down the path, like we've been saying week over week. Mark, you said, what do you want to talk about tonight? One of my thoughts was, maybe we can reflect on the last year. We know COVID's affected a lot of people, but I think from our lens, guys, I have a lot of things to be proud of for 2020, and I have a lot of things to look forward to in 2021. Earlier this year, and probably about February, March, April timeline, we were talking about podcasts. We were talking about doing some Facebook Live. We were talking about live streaming stuff. Those were discussions we had, even before that time. But it was partway through this year, we said, we're going to do this. We're going to commit to do it. And we now have hours of content. If people are bored and don't want to watch Netflix, I can go and on our YouTube channel or our podcast channel, they can listen to content. But our answer vault, you can search THC, you can search MAD, you can search whatever you want, and I'll bring you right to the answer of that session. You don't have to watch hours of content. So I think we've done a good job trying to increase that. But more importantly, from my perspective, if we were to look back just to September, that's when we launched these live streams. We committed to do this weekly, and guys, we've done it. And we're getting feedback from people, and I haven't shared this with you yet, Mark or Paul, but our last broadcast was last Sunday night, days before Christmas. Here we are a few days afterwards, and people are emailing us, and their frustration or concern was that we've been moving our date around, and they're used to watching on a Tuesday night or Wednesday night. Now it's Sunday night, and they're saying, hey, we're missing it. We did follow up and say you can still catch the replay on YouTube or on our podcasts, but that's something I think we got to take offline and maybe find a consistent date and time that we can watch this, because people are reaching out to us and saying, hey, I missed your first 10 minutes of your last episode because I'm used to it at Tuesday at 6 per se. If we go back again to the start of September, I think we've done a really good job. When I say we've done a good job, we meaning you, Mark, reached out to people to share their stories, but we've been blessed to have a lot of people that are willing to come share those stories. We started back in September with Jay, our pharmacist, and although that broadcast wasn't the best technical delivery, we had some technical glitches with the audio and the like, the content was strong. And I think we've committed that we're going to bring Jay or another pharmacist back in the new year sometime, which would help. But that was a good starting point from our perspective to talk about safety and the delivery of good, safe medicine utilizing your care team. And your care team is not just your family doc. And Paul, you introduced the tamoxifen case study when we're talking with Jay. And, we really looked at this as a risk-reward benefit, but also what is the risk and how do you involve your care team in part of that solution? And for me, the takeaway in that episode, guys, was when Jay said that they're now starting to mark cannabis, even if they don't get it from that pharmacy, that they are marking the medication record. So then the pharmacists and the doctors are now aware of that, which I took away as a takeaway that we should start be encouraging our patients to tell their pharmacy to be doing that. So, if I were to go back to our first broadcast, that to me was a strong takeaway and a good play on what we've done. Do you have any takeaways from that episode or anything you want to add to that?
That was the one strong point that I found. The other one was that the pharmacies do, or the pharmacists, I should say, do take their time. I think I related it to, he was talking about narcotics. And so there's a form and they chart that through and they can figure that out. And I said, how about other medicines? For example, for our local area, but any local hospital, someone's discharged, they usually fill the prescription right in the hospital. How do you know that, Jay? And they can work back and figure that out. The biggest thing is we've talked about, and why the tamoxifen case study came up. When you put it into your body, it can mix with something else. So product A might be safe on its own. Product B is safe on its own, but they don't belong together. And so that would be my huge takeaway point on top of yours, Doug.
Yeah, and Paul, to take off on what you said there, the other point that I talked about the notification of the record, but the other one for me was Jay spent a little bit of time talking to us about the non-listed, so the over-the-counters, the vitamins, the supplements, the other things that we tend to think are safe. Like you just said, Paul, they can have interactions as well. And just because you got over-the-counter, you didn't need a prescription, it could interact with medicines. And that's why it's important to follow up with your care team up with that as well.
Yes, and I would agree there was a lot of valuable information in that broadcast. And I know that in my personal circle, a couple of people have asked me, "Hey, I hear you talking about the pharmacist episode, and Jay, when can we have another pharmacist?" Because they see value in that. So definitely in 2021, that'll be one of our guests for sure. Yeah, so to me, if I can just kind of go in general terms here a little bit, 2020, a memorable year to say the least for so many different reasons. And COVID really stands out. I mean, that's the word that we hear, every day, many times a day, and everyone has been impacted by COVID, and both personally at work or businesses. And Doug, you touched on this briefly. When we decided to go virtual, we had been talking about that for a while prior to foregoing our brick and mortar location, because more and more people were joining us online. But it's a big decision, and we didn't want to disappoint anyone. But COVID kind of nudged us in that direction, and we did. And I think we will all agree that there's no looking back. For all the positive reasons that we all know and could be elaborating on in the next few minutes. But for us, it's really what we needed to make that decision, to take that big leap. And our patients, because of the circumstances, those that were coming to see us at the clinic, understood fully why we were doing it. And it worked really well in that transition. But along with that, it prompted all those other things, and the broadcasting and making a commitment to do that. And personally, I look back and I think it's been phenomenal, honestly, because as opposed to meeting one-on-one with people that came to our clinic, now we're able to reach that many more people. And because it's recorded, it's there as a resource for anyone wanting to listen to it, down the path, whether they've missed it or they've missed some information or they just want to dive in a little bit deeper. So what a transition, really, from where we were a year ago to where we are today. We've learned a lot this year, and I'm really very, very optimistic of where 2021 will take us.
Trying to see who's racing to their unmute mic to see who's going next here. Mark, I can echo everything you said. I'm not going to restate everything other than I agree with everything you're saying. I'd also say, to add some color, it's 9 months since we've been in our brick and mortar, and I think we've been able to deliver better care, more care. We've been able to help more people by doing reach. But I also, Mark, to add what you said, I don't know how long we would have been able to sustain our operation, because we would have been on the hook for everything that was financially a liability. But we're not able to bring people into the brick and mortar. So I think it's also helped us broaden our reach. Mark, looking back, and Paul, it was a year ago. I remember I was heading south for a couple of weeks to enjoy the time down the Mickey Mouse land. And, we committed at that time to do more work online. And our work online was really about broadening our reach, broadening our approach, and doing what we can to really help get the word, to help extend the communication. And our commitment was really about utilizing more, be more present online and using social media channels. And, we started slow, we took our time, we did the work, and, we've done it. Like, we're literally 362 days that we've posted every single day. Did we learn things along the way? Sure we did. Did we make a few, gaps along the way? Sure we did. But I think we've learned a lot along the way. And like you said, I think our approach is better than ever. I'd also say, we've talked about this a few times on live streams. Probably the other big thing that I think I'm most proud of from the team perspective is we put a lot of work into our Path to Be Well course. We'll be launching that in the new year in 2021. Just working through the final last pieces so then we can launch it and have it ready to go. But that was a tremendous amount of work that we took, and it was 5.5 years worth of our learnings from all of our consumers and package into a bite-sized program that we can deliver to people. And Paul, I would say, from the most part, the skeleton was developed by all of us, and then you kind of put the muscles and everything onto the bones to make it bite-sized, manageable for people. And we have 50 plus lessons now, and the lessons are anywhere from 3 minutes to 9 minutes. And I see nothing but value in them. And I'm looking forward to launching this, getting feedback from consumers, and then we'll tweak it, and we'll tweak it and tweak it and tweak it till people get what they need from a value perspective. But I'm confident that our program, the Path to Be Well, is going to help people go forward in the path. We're going to do all we can to help people improve the quality of life, reduce their pain, their suffering, their chronic condition, whatever it is, to help them move forward with their journey. So from my perspective, to copy what you said, Mark, I agree wholeheartedly on those other elements I said, and the path and our social reach. Those are a couple of keys that I'm also quite proud of.
For me personally, Doug, and I'm sure you will recall, part due to my age, I guess, but some of the terminology when we start to talk about this early on was somewhat foreign to me, and I'm sure it was pretty obvious to you guys and maybe perhaps even to our audience at times, just because of the lingo. But I'm much more familiar with it now, and I certainly appreciate the value that it brings. Not only to our patients at the clinic, but to anyone that's listening in, and that's really the strong point of being able to remove barriers and remove borders, really, because when you're streaming online, really anyone that's connected has access to it. So for me, I'm still in awe with all of that. But I'm really enjoying the ride, if I can use that terminology.
I would just say, from the clinic standpoint, the COVID's helped the patients as well. People who would never have considered logging onto a computer for whatever reason to see a physician. Kudos to them, because they've adjusted their life and what it is that they would typically see as a medical appointment, that is going to an office and whatnot. And they've rolled with our changes just as much. So kudos to the people out there as well.
And just to add, guys, I can go on all night about things that we've achieved and things I'm proud of. But another one that, if you guys saw the notes on the weekend, we're also publishing a book, and our manuscript will be ready to submit to our publisher probably in about 10 days from now. We're about 90% done our final manuscript review. So we'll be submitting that to our publisher. We expect to be able to have our book published and ready for consumption, I'd say right now by the summertime, June of 2021. That book should be ready. It'll be available at your bookstores, Barnes and Nobles, and Chapters, and Indigo. We'll have an Audible version available, so you can get that at Audible or Apple bookstore, Kindle. So we're doing what we can to help get our word, but again, our word is really our patient stories. And, we started a minute ago about talking about our broadcast with Jay, but guys, if we go back a little more, like, we had an amazing episode with Joe and Kareen. We started off with two great stories talking about their, they really told us how hard life was, what their situations really were like, how dark things were. And they didn't sell a miracle. They really said they had to do the hard work. I would say that was a pretty prevalent story that everyone shared with us. The work was the work that they did. And Paul, as I go through and re-listen to some of these episodes, one of the common threads that you're tugging on often is the support mechanisms. And those that have support mechanisms, those that do the hard work, those that set goals, but are going one step at a time, moving forward, as opposed to, I want to get from here and get to the end overnight. And I think you said this several episodes ago, Paul, like, this is a marathon. This isn't a 50-meter run. Like, we're in this for the long run. And Joe and Crean's story really said that to me. If we go through Francis and Cynthia, similarities again. People in these patients and consumers are sharing with us that they stayed and did the long journey, but I'm hopeful that their stories have been able to help people. We've already heard of people that have reached out to us by stating that, there's a parallel. They got some confidence that, they took that road and that someone else is going to be able to take that road by taking this parallel with them. So, there was a lot of really good takeaways from those episodes that we've already all talked about. But I think, if we look back, I'll tell you, a year ago, I never thought we would have had a strong live stream yet, a podcast. And we would have started off with people like Joe and Crean and Francis, Cynthia sharing those amazing stories. And it wasn't, like we all said, a magic pill and things are over. It was really, really raw emotion and talking about how dark life was and how long the road it was. And it was years to move forward on their path and their journey. And, them sharing that was just, it's so powerful. Yeah.
I totally agree, Doug. And we've come to recognize the value of patients sharing their story and their story prior to including cannabis in their treatment plan. Some of them, as you said, it took a long time before making that decision for a number of different reasons. The stigma in the work environment or at home. And I see the benefit of those discussions for other people that might be considering cannabis and are faced with the same thing, that they're not the only ones, right? So it's helping them, maybe if they're kind of sitting on the fence, and giving them that little nudge saying, hey, I'm not the only one. In fact, most of these stories that we've heard are very similar to mine, even if the ailment is different. And I'm convinced that it's really beneficial, really helping a lot of those that are maybe listening in and still sitting on the fence, to give them the nudge. And as you said, Doug, some of them were like in a dark place. They're at a crossroad in their lives where they need to make a decision. And going left is not a real good decision. In this case, it's going right, but making that decision and reaching out to someone that could help support them through, or at least to initiate that journey, and then to help them throughout that journey. And I think if we were to summarize all of those guests that we've had and sharing their story, it's very much that they found themselves in a situation that they needed to recognize where they were at and make a decision to reach out. And we all know the outcome.
When I look back at, James was on, Francis was on, and we talked a little bit about methods of consumption. Really, how did you get there? And I know when we talked about Francis with his migraines, I remember talking about oils. You try oils, try this. And Paul made a comment about, we always talk about sublingual oils, kind of our go-to, but he needed immediate relief now. And he said, guys, like, I know I should be doing this. I know I should be doing that, but I can do this now. And I can contribute to the family within minutes. And, part of our job is to help share the information, let people make informed decisions. And there is no one way. The one way is the way that works best for you. And we saw that with stories like Francis and James shared those elements with us. But most recently, Linda and Marie were with us, and they came down a path saying, this is what I want, and we kind of paved the road of the pros and cons with that. If I can take a stream from that, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. We've already had a question in tonight, someone asking about what do we think about ventilation? What do we think about, I'll call it inhalation methods of consumption. And I wouldn't say we're pro or con one way. I would say we try to edge people more along a sublingual from a dosing perspective and understanding how much you can get and titrate to effect and the like. But like we've demonstrated in our 4 Ways to Consume blog, which again, you can find on our website, on our blog. We have 4 ways to consume cannabis, which again, Paul, you've done a fabulous job making that available in a podcast form, a video form, an infographic, a reading form. We've got multiple ways that you can consume that content, but is to let people make informed decisions on what's the best way for them to consume. So there are times that, yes, we would recommend inhalation. There are times we would recommend that it should be an edible or a topical. But again, we really want to give the information and the tools to the consumer who's dealing with this chronic condition. Let them know the pros and cons of each method and modality. Let them make an informed decision what is best for them. It's not for us to say you're right or you're wrong. And that was another great takeaway in Francis' broadcast that, Paula, I really loved your ending on that. I think your capstone to that episode was, guys, we talk about this all the time, but this is what was working for Francis, and it was a great tool for him. And again, that's just part of what we're trying to do, is just give that information.
Yeah, you guys have covered a lot of good points here, but to the inhalation method, I'm glad it wasn't done purposefully, but when I look back, I think there's one sentence in the whole blog of what we recommend and where we kind of steer our patients if they have no preconceived notion. But that inhalation method, the instant feedback, is the trump card. That's the go-to. And so when we're treating conditions like the migraine coming on, or just pain in general, if you can get yourself to a place where you can get moving again, then that's the go-to way. So that's right for you. There are, certain situations where certain methods, I think sleep, if you're trying to stay asleep, an oil or an edible is going to be much more beneficial to you than the inhalation. And we just pull up the graph from that infographic and you see the short duration of action, or how long the medicine lasts when you're inhaling. You're probably going to wake up at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock when you don't really want to. So there's that. The stigma, Mark, you first brought this up tonight, and it's an interesting conversation over time, just being in the clinic and seeing patients, where some are just looking for THC for whatever medical condition, and some are totally almost scared of it. And we had that conversation last week and the week prior. They didn't come out and say I was scared, but I needed to get to the right place to do it. They were essentially saying that. And we find that we're educating. THC does have that side effect. There's no denying it. That doesn't make it an ineffective medicine. We just have to be careful of when we use it. So if you need to go to work in the morning, using it during the day is not an effective way. But if there's a way to use it for a symptom that you're dealing with after you've come home and have nowhere to go in the evening, THC definitely can be a part of a treatment plan, and you shouldn't be scared of it. And I'm glad that these consumers, these guests, were able to share with some other people who might be sitting on the fence. I'd like to try that cannabis, but I want that CBD one. That THC one really scares me. And so, that, to the stigma point that you brought up, Mark, I think that was another one. And I just find our conversations with patients in the clinic have evolved quite a bit in 2020, but just since the clinic is, or at least I started in the clinic for sure.
Paul, if I can tug your thread there about the stigma, if we go back a couple episodes ago, again, Linda kind of brought up some of that she said, I was a healthcare provider. I was worried about THC. I was scared about THC. I was scared about what other people thought of cannabis. I wasn't really a believer in it. And, I know our first few considerations was, I don't want to be stoned. I don't want to be high. Is this going to work? And I think during the broadcast, she said, she took less than what we would traditionally say a kid to take, half of a half of a half, because she was that concerned and she would rather take the longer journey to get there. And I think during our broadcast, she said, now that she's had the results she's had, now she's willing to look at that. And she said, I've totally looked at it differently. I know Marie had the same kind of conversation with us about the concerns about what people thought and even what she thought. And now she goes, now I look at it differently because now it's a medicine. And now I know I'm using it for me to help me with my condition, use it from a medical perspective. So I agree. I think people come into this with these preconceived notions and previous stigmas and what people thought and how it would affect things. And this go low, go slow approach has really provide improved quality of life where people can move forward on their own journeys to feel that, they're getting something out of what they're trying to achieve. So
I will say this with specific to Marie, I didn't expect her when we were talking about some of the stigmas to bring up her faith. But it was a keen reminder that for every person, there's a number of things that go into their decision making that may mesh up with the same things you put into a decision and might totally be different, and that's okay. But when she brought that up, it's like you got to take a step back and understand, especially if that's not something that you put much focus in, but you take a step back and evaluate or talk with the patient that way. I was really happy she brought that up because it was just a reminder that people come from their own backgrounds, their histories, their family life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and we're all different. And so, yeah, it was a little bit of a curveball, but I really liked that one.
It's funny, Val, you say that. When I go back and re-listen to some of these, there's a couple times we say, like, the response was like as if someone read our script, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's other times somebody says something like, we never expected that, or like you said, it was a curveball. We didn't know where it was coming, but that's what's making this real. That's what's allowing people to hear the real side of what's going on. And I'm looking forward to see what 2021 brings in our podcast schedule and hearing from our consumers and our listeners. What more do they want? What more can we deliver? I know right now Mark's working on getting someone that didn't get a great response. We want to share both sides of this equation. And, we're digging deep to find some people that deliver value, from manufacturers of products and services to everything, so that everyone has the ability to get the tools and the information. And like we started at the beginning of this broadcast, you can search it, so you have to go back and re-listen to every single episode. But we do encourage you to do that because there's some great content all the way through.
Yeah, so Paul, I appreciate you bringing that up again, and Marie's faith and how she was maybe struggling, might be a heavy word, but really trying to have peace is the word that she used with that. And I'm also happy that Doug really asked her to elaborate so that there was no question about what she meant. She came out and really said that. And yeah, as you said, Paul, it really shows that, people are coming from different areas and have their own specific personal reasons why they might struggle with making that decision. And some of them, I think we've heard them as well, is that perhaps someone in their own family or in their close circle has used or perhaps even abused marijuana in the past, and they've developed their own stigma as a result of that, and it made them maybe even a little fearful. Seeing, the response, or I think it was Marie that said, she was concerned about becoming addicted to that and really relying heavily on that. So again, those are all things that people do come up against in their decision making. So the more that we have these stories being shared, again, it just helps those people sitting on the fence to perhaps make that decision to take that step.
Yeah, in the end, Mark, that's what we're getting, or hopeful, from these broadcasts, people making that first step. And as I touched on at the start of the broadcast, that doesn't have to mean you need to take cannabis, but it's just moving yourself along a path. Every single patient that we've had on has found themselves in a really bad place. And there's lots of people tuning in for that exact reason. I have chronic pain. And understand their stories, probably like yours. I think Joe mentioned 2001. I think Corrine was 2009. These are long-standing issues. And so the story itself may match some of the details. For these individuals, cannabis was a tool, but we just want you to move along your path. If you're acknowledging or looking for an answer, you've acknowledged you're in a bad place, and so get moving. The weedwell.tips, there's lots of tools there, but anything that's going to improve your quality of life, you're going to find yourself much happier. And just like everything trickles down in a negative way, when you have that chronic pain or chronic symptom, it can trickle in a positive way once you alleviate that or eliminate that, if you're so lucky.
Guys, we talk often to our consumers about our tools, and we've talked about our tools that you started the broadcast night, Paul. Go to weedwell.tips that are available to people. And we're trying to make these tools available for people because, like you've identified already a few times, this isn't about cannabis. It's about helping people move forward with their chronic conditions and utilizing these tools to help them move forward, but using cannabis as a treatment option, as an alternative, because some of these people may have been down the path so many times that, they're at wit's end and they want to get some help with that. So, to reiterate, like, we want people to use these tools to help them. But one of the things we keep talking about is this medical selfie. We talk about take a selfie where you're at today. Let's mark a line in the sand where we are today. So then when we do move forward, and this was prevalent in Cynthia's broadcast, remember, the nurse and her husband was the one that was encouraging to journal. And her broadcast, what was really relevant to me was she said she had brain fog. She said that 3 times. And she says, you don't realize when you're dealing with this chronic condition every day, you don't remember the ankle pain, the swelling, the pain, the sleep. You don't remember all that stuff. And when you're better, your family, your support needs to say, yeah, but you remember when? You remember when? And she said journaling is what helped her realize patterns, helped her realize the good things, the bad things. And that journaling really helped her move forward with her goals, knowing where she was, how she had to move forward. But do I need to take more? Do I need to take less? Did this product work? Not work? Do I need to go for a walk longer, shorter? And that journaling really helped her snapshot her selfie, reevaluate where she has moved forward. And I think our medical selfie perspective, taking the snapshot where we are, helps people establish their goals and reestablish those goals. I think that's one of our big things from the takeaways that I've realized all the way through is, really coaching and helping people. And Paul, you said this. I don't remember the episode. It'll come to me if I think hard enough. I think it was Cynthia. It was Cynthia. You said Cynthia held herself accountable. She was the one that told herself she had to get off the couch. She was the one that told her she had to go and do the work. It didn't happen on its own. And all these tools that we're talking about, they're just documents we've created to help people use these tools to move forward. They got to do the hard work. And it goes back to that selfie SMART goal analogy.
That selfie is so important. Just getting a starting point of where you're at. We're talking about it, and you're totally right, Doug, in future context, measuring where you're at, using a health journal and stuff like that. But it works in current context too. When you have a handle on yourself, on what's working, what's not, because many of the guests have tried previous therapies. In a way, makes you a better patient. And we've talked about this with previous guests, advocating for yourself and your healthcare. And we want people to do that, whether it's with their cannabis doctor, but more importantly, their specialists, their surgeons, their family doc. Advocate for yourself. Be able to relate what it is that you're going through, what has worked, what hasn't worked. The selfie is kind of the framework of that. And then all other treatments can be evaluated against that selfie, cannabis or not, right?
Paul and Mark, I never ran this by you guys, and hopefully, I can't even tell if I'm going to get an evil stare tonight from this, but I'm going to make a comment. A minute ago, Mark, you said that you're looking forward to 2021. You said you're really loving the stuff that we're doing online right now and where we're going. I wanted to bring up with you guys, Nate, like what's our goal moving forward? Let's talk about SMART goals and what is our goal moving forward, because we got to lead by example. We can't be telling everyone to take these medical selfies and create SMART goals and do this kind of work if we don't do them ourselves, and we got to believe in our methodologies. So I kind of think now's the time that we should probably share our SMART goal for 2021. And I know this is still in, I'll call it draftish form, but I think we've done a lot of work on this, and we haven't said this publicly yet, but I'm going to share it, and hopefully you like it. And if you don't, we'll leave it at that. But Mark, a minute ago, you talked about our online reach, and we can reach more people online, and you like what we've done so far, and you're looking forward to 2021. And Paul, you've made the same comments, and we've all talked about what that reach looks like. I know one thing that we've been talking about is, we're reaching more people by doing these types of broadcasts and by what we're trying to do. We know we can help more people. We've also been saying that we're not here to say that cannabis is here to change everyone's lives. We're here to really say it's a tool in the toolbox, but we want to give you the tools to help improve your quality of life. Well, I just want to say, what are we trying to do? What's our purpose? What's our mission? What's our drive? What are we really driven towards? And from my perspective, we've been doing a lot of work on this internally, and we've been really trying to shape our focus. I say shape our focus. What are we trying to do, and how are we trying to do it? And our course that we're launching in the new year is part of that. Because now it doesn't matter if you're living within a 1 hour radius of our facility or if you're in another country. We're focused on helping people with chronic condition. And kind of the work that we've really done is around that. What is our focus? We want to really dial in what is it we're trying to do. And kind of what we've come up with is, we're vigorously committed to our goal. And our goal is in helping 100,000 people who suffer from a chronic medical condition fulfill a better quality of life by considering the safe use of cannabis in their treatment plan. And if I can just summarize, a lot of our work, a lot of what we've done is that. And Paul, you said a minute ago, it's not about the cannabis. It's not about, you need to go see your doctor, prescription. It could be just taking your medical selfie. And if you're suffering from chronic condition and you just take a medical selfie, and if that's all you get done in 2021, but now you know where you're at, and if in 2021 you drew a line in the sand, you can at least say, here's where I am, I'd say mission accomplished. And if you're someone that's already done that today and next year at the same time, you can do your medical selfie again, you can compare and contrast, I'd say good job. And I think what we have done is we've done a lot of work on creating the tools, but here's where I see we're focused now. Our focus has really gone from a 1 area radius, catchment area around our brick and mortar to now we're not a geographically focused. We're more now focused around those. And when I say those who have a parallel type story to Joe and Corrine and Francis and Cynthia and James and Linda and Marie, and the list will go on. And if you can see some sort of a parallel, and if you think that some sort of parallel works for you, then the geographical borders doesn't matter. It's about the tools to help move you down the path to get a better result. Again, we didn't talk about this beforehand, and it might have been, hey, this is going too deep, but I think we need to put our feet to the fire because everything we're doing is about reaching that 100,000 goal. Mark, you start off every broadcast about the work we've done and what gives us our right to say we're here to be able to share our stories. And it's kind of, here's what we've done to share our experience, but it's more than just the 6,000 people, right? That's what got us to where we're at today. But our goals are bigger than that. And we want to really help more. And our focus is now on 100,000 people improve the quality of their lives. Over to you, because, that might be something you guys are looking at each other, texting each other saying, what's he doing?
Well, Doug, I've known you long enough to know that a couple of times I put you on a spot, and we're getting really close to year end here. So I kind of anticipated you coming up with something like this before the end of year. But Yeah, Doug, I totally agree with you. And I want to go back, Doug, to some discussions or conversation that you and I have been having for quite some time. I'm talking a few years now. And we've always said that, in our industry, in what we do, status quo simply doesn't cut it. Unless you're taking steps to move forward, to improve, you're actually, status quo means you're falling behind because of, how things are changing rapidly. And we've done a good job all the way through, even before launching 100% virtual and our broadcast and all of that, in removing those barriers to care and those little steps that we've taken in our own processes. And we've said, and you've said very well, a patient who saw us 2 months ago comes to see us again, they're going to get a better experience this time around than they did 2 months ago. And the same would hold true for a patient next month and the month following that, because it's an ever evolving process. And that's probably the number one thing that I'm very proud of in our accomplishments over the years, is that we've never settled for status quo. We always made decisions and choices from the patient perspective. How can we help improve what we do that's going to benefit them even more so? And when you take that approach, you're going to win in the end. By winning, I mean you're going to succeed at what you've really set out to do, and that is to help those that need help.
Yeah, this is a great banner, Doug. It's a big order. I love it. If you were to ask me what I wanted to do, I wouldn't necessarily come. Mine would have been a little more uni-focused as opposed to global focused. So I love this. However, I would say for me, I would love to, I think we're on the cusp of a lot more research coming, and it would give us a lot more of the nuts and bolts of what works, how it works, and how we can relate that to patients. And I would, provided that comes out 2021, 2022, there's a lot of things that have changed in the industry that is going to allow that to happen. I want that to be incorporated into my /our practice. The latest and greatest, the up to date, and the whole bit. And so, some of the things that we're doing, they're going to be supported by the evidence, and some maybe not so much, but we'll adjust accordingly. Because as you touched on, Mark, when you're working with the patient in mind and making the decisions with the patient in mind, you're going to win. You're going to succeed in what it is that you set out to do. So mine, I guess, my idea was a little more uni-focused to me. But that being said, for me, I've been on board since 2017. I jumped 2 feet in only in April. It was around the 1st of April in 2020. And I am so happy for having done that. My eyes are opened every single day, it feels like, with this, and it's great. And so, I have only ambition and looking forward to 2021 and what's coming next.
Paul, just to take away from the SMART goal example and analogy, I threw that out kind of as our global, purpose. We didn't all say that. And I think together we all have our own deliverables and what are we going to do to achieve that? And I know from my perspective, and, I bet you if we all, we could even do it for fun right now. We could write a number down and then in 3 seconds show our number up to the screen and see if we're on the same page. But to me, if you think about these live streams that we've been doing, they've been great, and we've been talking about how do we improve them. We debrief them on a regular basis. But I think we got to continue doing that, and maybe even more. And the number I have, if you all want to write down the number and show, the number I have is 60. We have to be doing 60 episodes in 2021. And if we do 75, great. But anything less than 60, I would say we didn't meet our SMART goal. So, back to what you said is, mine was more micro. I have a lot of micro ones too, but we also want to be striving towards our big goal. And our big goal of the 100,000 people who are suffering from a chronic medical condition, to me, is not a 2021 goal. To me, that might take us 10 years to achieve that, but we're in this for the long run. We're in this to help change 100,000 lives. And can you imagine, guys? We're going to have a way to be able to show this someday. We'll find a way on our website to show, just like you see those fundraising barometers where you see amount of money raised. Well, just think if we were to change 100,000 lives. And if you go back, and we both know, we all know this. If we go back and we re-listen to Joe and Corrine and Francis and Cynthia and James and Linda Marie, every one of them said that their life has improved. Not one of them said their life went backwards. Everyone said their life has improved. Well, if we look at any one of those people, I bet you we'd all agree, for every one of those people whose life's improved, how many other people were affected in a positive way? Their spouse, their children, workplace, the list goes on. So 100,000 lives, that's, to me, direct. That might be a 300,000 people that have directly had an improved response to that. I don't think that's a lofty goal, but we've got to start by doing what we're doing now and continuing to get the word out and all these little things we're doing to contribute to get to that point.
Yeah, Doug, I couldn't agree with you more, and I'm really happy that you elaborated and saying if we can help 100,000 people over the next, say, 10 years, is the end result is how many lives have you really impacted? And if we go back to even Joe and how he was sharing his testimony, and how people didn't even want to be around him for many years, is the message I was getting. And now that's turned around, he's able to spend time with his grandchildren and his wife, and that they were out shopping for a boat. So to see that sort of impact, this is going to have an impact on a much greater number. I would agree totally.
If you guys want to indulge me, I'd like to share a document. Again, I haven't shared this with you guys yet, but this is kind of a document that we've been talking about for years. Mark, some of these comments we've said back in 2015. We tweaked it in 16. Paul, you added contribute in 17, 18, 19. And this year, guys, we've really fine-tuned this, and I would say it's ready to go. And what the document really says is, it says all of the negative attributes that people have. So often we've had people and they've said the bad things that were going on in their life. And we always hear the bad things, and Mark said a minute ago about barriers to care, barriers to access. There was some sort of a roadblock preventing them from getting on the path to be well. And we have been documenting these since the beginning. And we've talked about SMART goals. We were actually documenting SMART goals with consumers back in 2016. What we've done together, you just didn't know I was documenting them, is we've created a document that we're going to start sharing with our consumers. And the document is kind of it's our manifesto. It's our positive statements about all the negative statements we've heard. We've turned the negatives into positives. Now, it might not be clear enough, big enough for everyone to see, but I'll go through from the top down. So again, we want to make these a positive attribution. So I have confidence in my choice of treatment with cannabis. And that's all about providing the tools and the solutions and the guidance and the tools and the support metrics to give them the confidence in that. Doctors have my best interests in mind. Sometimes they seek alternatives because I have not responded to the primary treatments. I have so much to gain. One step at a time, I will get there. That to me is a really prevalent one that we've said many times. And Paul, I love it when you've reiterated that a few times. That it's a marathon. Don't expect the wins overnight. It's a long marathon that we're on. And we really want to make that real for you. Like, this is one step at a time. The cost of cannabis is an investment into my well-being. Often we hear a lot of people, when we talk about the cost analysis and what is that cost, but a lot of people come back to us and said, it's actually an investment in my well-being. And we've actually looked at it from that perspective. I control what my future path looks like. This goes back to making this patient-centered, consumer-centered, right? They're the ones that decide that destiny, what that path looks like. I go back to the episode with Francis and Paul. You so eloquently said the method of consumption that he chose, what was best for him. He controlled what that looked like for him. Anything is possible. I know my body and what works and what does not, and have a clear path where I want to go. I'm thankful for my relationships to help support me. Another very relevant thing that we've seen time after time. The success has been about supportive relationships. I'm grateful for my doctor who cares for me, and I can provide a responsible treatment plan with cannabis. I have a holistic approach to my wellness. I come first. I have healthcare choices that enable me to achieve my health goals. After trying other treatments, I am eager to find the right solution for me. I know cannabis is my medicine. It helps me. I know we've heard this several times from people. That was kind of a turning point when people looked at this, when we've talked about this stream of stigma, when people looked at it as a medicine that was there to help them. That's when they're able to accept it and do what they need to do to move forward. There will be brighter days ahead. I have a path to wellness that is centered around me. And these statements are statements that we'll continue to tease and continue to say, but these are kind of going to be our ones that we're going to resort back to. And these are statements that our consumers have said to us that often are put in a negative tone, and we've translated them into a positive tone to give people the hope, the confidence, the tools, the support that they need to move forward. With that, I'm done. 2020, I think we've done a tremendous job. I love everything we've done and proud of everything we've done. I'm only looking forward to what comes, and the more that we can do to help people on our journey to improve 100,000 people, improve the quality of their life.
In everything that you read there, Doug, what really stood out to me, because it was repeated, and that it's really about me. And as much as that may come across as being selfish, it totally isn't. I mean, you have to start looking at what's best for me now, okay, so that I can take steps to help improve my quality of life. Because as we talked a few minutes ago, that's going to have a positive impact on those that are around me. And that could be your children, your spouse, whoever is in your circle. And that really, really stood out. In a different context, it would come across perhaps as being selfish, but in this context, it's absolutely not. It's really being able to recognize that, and for those reasons we've already talked about.
Well, Paul, sorry, go.
Oh no, it's fine. If we're ready to wrap up, Mark, you're 100% right. Often we meet consumers, patients who have been trying to keep it all together for everyone else. And honestly, when they evaluate what it is that they were trying to do, they find that they were failing to some degree, despite best efforts and the whole bit. And when they turn around and start with the selfie, there's the first primary focus on you, the person in the mirror. And when we want to build you up from there, and everything about the path to be well and the signature course is to build you up right from that point. The selfie is all about me. It's not selfish. It's just a selfie.
We usually end these broadcasts by Mark saying, thank you for participating here in what we had to say. And there's people behind the scenes. And Mark, probably about 6 or 7 ago, you talked about some of those people, and one of them was Danielle. Mark's kind of been egging Danielle to come on our broadcast, and we'll get her on in 2021. That's going to be one of our goals for 2021.
I hope she's listening.
But she'll listen to this on replay. But
yeah.
Danielle is one of those people, guys, that we wouldn't be here today if she wasn't in our corner, backing us up and supporting us. Not only supporting us, but she does a splendid job supporting our consumers and our patients and our clients. She wasn't manning the fort, manning the phones and the emails and the inquiries, and being the strong patient advocate, we wouldn't be where we are today, because we have dropped balls before, and usually she catches them, or eggs, and she catches them before they hit the ground.
Yeah.
So without her attention to detail and everything we do, we wouldn't be where we are today. So huge amount of kudos and respect and appreciation, applause for Danielle. Another one is Dr. Sherman. He's helped, all of our patients. I've seen him and Dr. Adelberg before him. His attention to detail and his patient-centered focus and care, and the work that he does. Patients love working with him and his approach, as well as the work and facilitation of the content with us. Without that, we wouldn't be where we're at either. So another amount of appreciation to him for that. Another one behind the scenes that we've never talked about on our broadcast, but I'll do now, is Tanya. Tanya is someone that kind of puts all the glue together from the technical standpoint. So whether it's websites or blogs or newsletters or whatever the technical pieces are that people use to watch and see and hear, she's on the back end kind of making those technical pieces get connected for us. So another huge amount of respect and appreciation for what Tanya offers us. And to you two guys, Mark and Paul. Mark, we've spent several years on the phone before and after our days start and end, and a lot of things we've communicated back in 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, and all the way through this year. We've talked about these things. Like if we come up with an idea, say a podcast that we released in September, we've talked about that 45 times before, but this year we said, why don't we hit the record button while we're doing this call? But I would say we remain true to our vision, our values, and what we're trying to do. And again, the attention to, a patient-centered model of care and a patient-centered experience. And we've just taken that and massaged that from us being the healthcare delivery agent to now, how can we help more people? Instead of being the healthcare delivery agent, let's try to give people the tools in the toolbox that they can manage their own care no matter where they are. And without that support and friendship and guidance and facilitation, that we wouldn't be where we're at. So thank you for that. And Paul, I've said this together in our own little scrums, but you said a minute ago, it was April of this year, that you actually jumped in both feet. That's because we all have busy lives, and we all come at different cross points in our journey. And in April of this year, you said, these two guys are on the phone all the time talking. I want to get involved because they're still talking. They're not mad at each other. So there's got to be something going on that's good. But Paul, with all due seriousness, if you didn't jump in both feet in April, we wouldn't be where we're at. We wouldn't be able to launch our live streams, our podcast, our book, our core content, and delivering the focus to the care that we've talked about. A minute ago, you talked about research and delivering research. I know that's something that's of interest, but that's not in my purview right now. That's not a thinking perspective, and your delivery adds more value to us and to our consumers and to our listeners and to our audience. And honestly, without those contributions, we wouldn't be here, nor would we move forward. And when I say here, on this broadcast where people can listen on a global scale, we'd still be on our scale. So I sincerely tell you, like if you haven't told you that yet, or you don't know that yet, you need to know, like, it's a huge amount of kudos, respect, appreciation, applause. Like, I can't tell you enough. You are helping more people get to the 100,000 goal than you probably recognize, respect, or appreciate, because we might have been able to help design the plane, but you actually got it to get it in the air, and now we're just gaining altitude. So thank you. And to both of you, I appreciate the friendships and the collegial relationship. I appreciate 2020, and all the best in 2021.
Very well said. Paul, I totally echo every comment that Doug has made. And it's nice to have you with both feet in. And my expectations were fairly high, and I will say that you have far surpassed my expectations, and for that I'm so very grateful. And you mentioned the others. Ironically, I was touching base with kind of a long lost friend over the weekend due to Christmas, and he happens to be a patient at the clinic. So when I told him about our call it transformation and no more brick and mortar, he was quick to say, I sure hope Danielle is still working with you guys. So he was obviously very keen in knowing that she was still there, because he certainly come to know Danielle for who she really is. And I know that when Danielle is hearing this, she'll be blushing.
See, you guys are smart. You've been at it since 2013, and for Mark, and then Doug when you guys melded, and you knew to go first, because there's no way. First off, I don't like talking like this, and secondly, there's no way I'm going to top it. So, well played, gentlemen. Well played. Thank you both very much for having me jump with both feet in. I'll tell you, it was an interesting journey in 2017. It was a whole nother world to me when I first come into the clinic with doctor clinic days and providing education that way. But it's been a wonderful growth journey, and that's all on you guys, setting the framework. And Doug, when you put up a global vision like that, I've already said I have a very myopic viewpoint, but setting the stage like that, gentlemen, gets people on board. And when you get people on board and motivated and happy and the whole bit, that's where I'm at right now. And so thank you to both of you.
So I don't want to end this session until I've had a chance to voice this. And some of you may have heard this before, even some of our listeners. But in 2013, when I fully committed to this, we were primarily driven by passion and compassion, and really with no systems to support what we were doing. And honestly, it was embarrassing to recognize how many balls or even eggs that we were dropping. And for me, what became really evident and knowing that we needed to do something about that is that those patients coming to see us, the majority of them had gone through hoops looking for anything that could help alleviate their pain, their discomfort, and help them improve their quality of life. So they went through hoops for years in some cases, and we were just adding to that because we weren't doing a very good job, not because it wasn't our goal, it's just we didn't really know how to do it. And fortunately, in 2015, I met Doug and Dr. Adelberg at the time, and all of those areas that were not our strong areas, Doug and Dr. Adelberg brought to the table. So it was an obvious, good decision to make to, amalgamate both entities. And there's been no looking back ever since. Doug is a systems guy. He's very structured in his ways, but is also very much a visionary. And for me, that's been a real blessing, and it's been a real pleasure to work alongside Doug and the others that have been mentioned, but now with you as well, Paul, for sure.
Guys, Happy New Year to you. All the best. I look forward to what we're going to achieve and accomplish. And to everyone listening, Happy New Year to you, and all the best for a great 2021. Mark, why don't you do your signature sign off and let's call it a night.
Absolutely. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
So, folks, you hear many stories on our broadcasts, and I just want to remind you that the information that is shared in these broadcasts are very specific to individual and may not be right for yourself. And we always suggest that you do consult with your healthcare team to determine if cannabis is indeed something that's appropriate for you. So for those who have taken even some small steps in improving your quality of life, we congratulate you. And remember that your journey is your journey. And as long as you are taking some steps forward in improving the quality of your life, you should be proud of the progress that you're making. So on behalf of the entire team at Weedwell, until we spend time with you again in 2010, in 2021, I say till the next time, be well. Thank you for joining me. I'd like to take this time to share with you how I first became interested and then involved with cannabis as a medicine. My name is Mark Tremblay, a founding member of Simcoe Holistic Health, Ontario's first medical clinic dedicated to the treatment and care of those patients considering cannabis as an option. As a teenager, I did sample marijuana and quickly concluded that it simply wasn't for me. I'll admit I did find myself judging those who did consume weed, thinking that their sole motive was strictly to get high. It wasn't until many years later that I discovered the true medical benefits of marijuana. A loved one was diagnosed with MS. After many months of symptom manifestation resulting in sleepless nights, I witnessed firsthand how cannabis can help alleviate symptoms and improve sleep. My eyes were open. My interest further increased. As a result, Simcoe Holistic Health opened its doors in 2013. Since then, our clinic has operated under 4 Health Canada regulations and served nearly 6,000 patients ranging from ages 3 to 93. I have personally witnessed countless individuals and families who experience improved quality of life. Having said that, I've also observed that cannabis treatment is simply not for everyone. As we continue to grow and expand our reach, Simcoe Holistic Health is rebranding to Weedwell. For more information, visit us at weedwell.com or follow us on our social channels. Till the next time, be well.